The day my wife's former driver warned me, he didn't look scared. He looked guilty. My name is Adrian Keller. I'm 32 years old. And for the past year, I've been quietly paying the salary of a man my wife fired without severance, dignity, or explanation. His name is Mateo Ruiz. He drove for us for 8 years. Loyal. Invisible. The kind of man powerful people forget exists. My wife, Camille, didn't forget. She removed him. Suddenly. No reason given. I found him 3 weeks later working night shifts at a warehouse, pretending he wasn't humiliated. I didn't ask questions. I just helped. Cash transfers. Quiet references. Anonymous support. He never asked for it. Today he stopped me outside my office garage. He didn't greet me. He didn't smile. He just stepped close and said low enough no one else could hear. Tomorrow, don't get in the car with your wife. Take the bus. Your life depends on it. I stared at him. What are you talking about? You'll understand, he said, when you see who's on that bus. Then he walked away. No drama. No explanation. Just certainty. Camille texted me minutes later. Dinner tomorrow. Just us. I'll have the car ready. I stood there in the concrete echo of the garage, staring at the message. For 12 years, my wife has controlled every detail of our public life. The cars. The schedule. The optics. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd ever controlled anything at all. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I believed him. Because I believed the way he said it. Mateo wasn't dramatic. He wasn't paranoid. In 8 years of knowing him, I had never seen him exaggerate anything. He spoke like a man who had already decided the outcome. At breakfast, Camille was radiant. Black dress. Minimal jewelry. Controlled smile. Car will be downstairs at 6, she said casually. We'll drive ourselves tonight. We never drove ourselves. There was always a driver. Always security. Always structure. Why not the usual? I asked lightly. She buttered her toast with precise movements. Privacy, she said. I miss it. I watched her hands. No tremor. No tension. Just calm. At 5:45 p.m., I walked to the garage. The car sat polished and waiting. Engine already running. Camille in the driver's seat. She rolled the window down slightly. You coming? She asked. And for a moment I almost laughed at myself. Almost stepped in. Almost ignored a warehouse worker's warning over a decade of marriage. Instead I looked at her. I forgot something at the office, I said. Meet you there. She studied me. Just for half a second too long. Then she smiled. Don't be late. The car pulled out smoothly. I stood there until the taillights disappeared. Then I walked past the elevators. Past my office building. And toward the bus stop 2 blocks away. At 6:03 p.m., I boarded the 214 downtown line. I scanned the seats. And then I saw him. My personal security chief. Sitting in the back. Not looking at me. Pretending not to know who I was. For a second I considered getting off. The bus doors hadn't fully closed yet. But then he looked up. Just once. And in that glance I saw something I had never seen in Daniel Reyes, my head of security for 5 years. Not loyalty. Calculation. He looked away immediately. Phone in hand. No reaction. Like I was just another commuter. I moved toward the middle aisle, keeping him in my peripheral vision. Daniel wasn't supposed to be here. He was assigned to Camille today. That was the schedule. I knew because I approved it. The bus pulled away from the curb. My pulse stayed steady. I texted Camille. Running 10 minutes late. Traffic. She responded instantly. No problem. Drive safe. Drive safe. Interesting choice of words. Daniel shifted in his seat. He checked his watch. Then his phone. Then the rearview mirror reflection. Not at traffic. At me. That's when I noticed something else. 2 rows ahead of him. A man in a navy suit. Earpiece. Trying too hard to look ordinary. I didn't recognize him. But he wasn't random. The bus stopped at 8th Street. The navy suit stood. So did Daniel. Neither looked at me. They exited together. The doors closed again. And the bus continued. My phone vibrated. News alert. Luxury sedan involved in multi-vehicle collision. Driver critical. Passenger condition unknown. Time, 6:17 p.m. Location. The exact intersection Camille would have passed. I stared at the screen. Then slowly looked up. The seat beside me was no longer empty. Mateo was sitting there. And he hadn't been on the bus when I boarded. I didn't flinch. If there's one thing Camille taught me, it's this. Never react first. Mateo sat beside me like he'd been there the whole ride. Cap low. Hands steady. You weren't supposed to see Daniel? He murmured without looking at me. I did, I replied calmly. And the man in the navy suit? A faint nod. The accident wasn't random, he said. I assumed. The bus rolled past flashing lights in the distance. Sirens blurred through the city like background noise in someone else's life. Was I the target? I asked. No. That answer landed harder than yes would have. Matteo finally turned slightly toward me. You were the variable. Silence stretched between us. Camille suspected you might not get in the car, he continued. Daniel was backup. The crash wasn't to kill you. To do what? To create narrative. My mind accelerated. Public couple. Young CO. High-profile merger pending. Sympathy. Temporary executive authority. Media leverage. Who's driving? I asked. Matteo's jaw tightened. Not Camille. My stomach dropped. She got out 2 blocks before the intersection. The bus slowed again. Emergency vehicles now visible. Smoke rising. That car, Matteo said quietly, was meant to crash. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A calm female voice spoke. Adrian, where are you? Camille. I swallowed. On my way, I said. There was a pause. You weren't on the bus, she said softly. Not a question. A statement. The line went dead. Matteo stood as the bus approached the next stop. You need to see something, he said. Now. And for the first time since this started, I realized the bus wasn't the warning. It was the trap. The bus doors opened. Matteo stepped off. I followed. We didn't speak until we were 2 blocks away from the intersection, tucked between a shuttered cafe and a pharmacy closing for the night. Sirens screamed behind us. Smoke still hung in the air. That wasn't Camille driving, Matteo repeated. Then who was? I asked. He pulled out his phone. Security footage. Timestamp, 5:58 p.m. Underground garage. Camille exiting the driver's side. Switching seats. Daniel sliding behind the wheel. I stared at the screen. She staged it, I said. No, Matteo replied. She escalated it. The words felt heavier. Escalated what? He hesitated. Then showed me another clip. Different angle. Different day. 3 weeks ago. Daniel speaking to someone in the same navy suit from the bus. They weren't whispering. They were laughing. This wasn't her idea, Matteo said quietly. Then whose? He looked at me like I already knew. You're 32, Adrian. Fastest liquidity exit in the sector this year. Majority control shift pending. You think everyone's happy? The accident wasn't about sympathy. It was about instability. If I'd been in that car, even unharmed, markets would panic. Emergency board clauses would trigger. Leadership uncertainty. Acquisition leverage. And if I'd died? Even cleaner. My phone buzzed again. Breaking news alert. Young tech executive involved in crash rumored critical. My name. Already trending. Camille wasn't trying to kill me. She was trying to control the narrative. But someone else had decided narrative wasn't enough. Matteo looked toward the smoke. This wasn't her move. I felt it settle into place. If it wasn't hers. Then Daniel hadn't been backup. He'd been the executioner. And he hadn't expected me to be on that bus. Which meant one thing. He thought I was dead. For the next 7 minutes, I officially didn't exist. News outlets recycled the same blurry footage. My name crawled across screens. Unconfirmed reports. Sources say. Critical condition. Daniel had executed the plan cleanly. Except for one flaw. He was operating under the assumption I was in that car. Matteo's phone buzzed. He glanced down. Board emergency call scheduled in 20 minutes, he said. Camille's on it. Of course she was. If I was presumed incapacitated, or worse, interim authority would shift. Not permanently. Just enough to restructure voting control. I felt something settle inside me. Clarity. Get me somewhere secure, I said. Matteo didn't hesitate. We moved fast. Not running. Not hiding. Just disappearing efficiently. Inside a small office above the warehouse he used to work at, I finally called Camille. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was steady. Adrian. You're good, I said quietly. Pause. Excuse me? You got out before the impact. You're already shaping the narrative. Silence. Then. Where are you? I didn't answer. Instead I asked, did you know Daniel switched the plan? That was the crack. Tiny. But real. What do you mean? You weren't escalating, I said. He was. Long pause. Then her voice dropped. Adrian, you were supposed to be in that car. Not accusatory. Not angry. Confused. And that's when I understood. Camille hadn't known. Daniel hadn't been protecting her interests. He'd been positioning himself. My phone buzzed again. Private number. I answered. Daniel's voice. Come. Measured. Adrian, he said softly. You were supposed to be dead. I didn't speak immediately. Silence makes people reveal themselves. Daniel filled it. You complicated things, he continued calmly. But we can still fix this. Fix. Interesting word. You crashed the car, I said evenly. I executed a necessary correction. For who? For stability. There it was. The language of men who believe power equals morality. You think the board will follow you? I asked. They already are. I muted the call and looked at Mateo. He nodded once. Laptop open. Board portal access active. Emergency session live. Camille was speaking. Until we confirm Adrian's condition, we must preserve continuity. Daniel cut back in through my phone. You built something extraordinary, he said. But you're emotional. You hesitate. I don't. And that justifies attempted murder? It justifies inevitability. I unmuted the board call. Spoke clearly. Good evening. Silence. Absolute. Camille's breath caught audibly. Daniel stopped talking mid-sentence. Interesting discussion, I continued calmly. Especially since I'm very much alive. Chaos erupted. Voices overlapping. Questions firing. I didn't rush. I suggest we review the garage footage, I said. And the unauthorized driver's seat swap. Daniel tried to cut in. Too late. Mateo screen shared the clip. Daniel's face. Clear. Deliberate. The room shifted instantly. Control is fragile. It only takes one fact to break it. Daniel's voice returned to my phone, lower now. You don't understand what you're up against. I ended the call. Because I did. And this was bigger than a board vote. Daniel was gone by morning. Not arrested. Not publicly exposed. Just unreachable. His access badges deactivated. His accounts frozen. His apartment emptied before sunrise. Professionals like him don't wait for consequences. They pivot. The board suspended him pending investigation. Market stabilized once I appeared publicly, uninjured, controlled, composed. The crash was labeled mechanical failure under review. Claim. Contained. But not finished. Camille came to the warehouse office that afternoon. No entourage. No cameras. Just her. You didn't tell me, she said quietly. You didn't ask, I replied. We stood facing each other like strangers who had survived the same storm differently. I never intended for you to die, she said. I know. And you never trusted me enough to tell me you suspected Daniel. I let that sit. Trust isn't broken in explosions. It erodes in silence. You were managing optics, I said. He was managing outcomes. And you? She asked. I was learning. Daniel had inserted himself slowly. Security upgrades. Schedule influence. Access to decision flow. Not through aggression. Through usefulness. The car wasn't the real attack. It was the acceleration of a long infiltration. Mateo stepped inside quietly, placing a folder on the table. Daniel's offshore accounts. Communications. Board manipulation drafts. Not rogue ambition. Strategic takeover. Camille looked at the documents, then at me. What now? I closed the folder. We rebuild structure. Not marriage. Not trust. Structure. I stepped outside into the late afternoon light. For 12 years, I thought power meant control over movement. Cars. Drivers. Routes. I was wrong. Power is knowing when to change direction. Yesterday, I didn't get in the car. Tomorrow, no one drives me anywhere. Not my wife. Not my security chief. Not the board. And definitely not fate.